Hi, geniuses. Welcome back to the Female Genius Podcast. Today's episode, I have an interview with, I feel like every time I open a podcast interview, I'm like, yeah, this person's the coolest person ever. But that's just true because one of the women I have on the podcast, ranked top 5 coolest people I've ever met. And so I had this opportunity to invite Lucy Jung onto the podcast. So for those of you guys who are not aware, Lucy Jung is the founder of LYEONS and Charco Neurotech and an inventor of neuromodulation medical devices dedicated for improving the quality of life for people with long-term conditions. A design engineer by training, she's passionate about developing patient-centered solutions that combine technology, empathy, and accessibility. I had the opportunity to work with her during my gap year and her team at LYEONS Neurotech, and I just learned so much from her. And at the end of the year, I was thinking, what gift could I give all of the geniuses that tune in and listen to this podcast that I love so much? And I wanted to impart some of the things that really inspired me this year and the people that really inspired me this year. Lucy, obviously, she's accomplished so many amazing things, but the thing that I found most inspiring when working with her is her mindset. And I hope in today's episode, you are able to garner from the questions I ask and the conversation we had, what her mindset is, and extract those things that are useful for you to carry on and throughout the new year. This is just a really fun conversation. I will say, if you're watching on video, okay, this is my disclaimer, but this is a disclaimer because of my perfectionism, okay? The lighting, for me, Lucy looks amazing, but for me, I look horrible. So we're just going to put that disclaimer. But yes, this is such an amazing episode full of so much wisdom and so much inspiration. I think it's the perfect thing to get you in that mood for the new year, for when you're planning your goals, when you're thinking about what you want to change in your life. I think this conversation is something that's going to underpin and allow you to think about things differently. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode.
Female Genius.
So first of all, Lucy, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I want to say to everybody that's listening that Lucy's probably the coolest person I've ever met in my life. So I've been very excited to do this interview for ages, especially since working with you as well. And so I'm going to start off with the first question, which is from working with you on LYEONS Neurotech, from the first time I met you when they did the conversation piece and the panel, I've always felt like you are the type of person that is driven by curiosity. You get really excited by explaining things, or really passionate when other people are passionate about explaining things. And so when considering LYEONS Neurotech, what was the thing that sparked that curiosity, that lit that fire in you initially?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I do have to say, I'm almost kind of shy of hearing that I'm the coolest person, because I think today, actually, I would love to kind of talk to you more about how I am as a person, because I think that's also very important. The curiosity, though, I love this question because you're absolutely right. I'm so curious about so many things. And as you can imagine, sometimes, it's great, but sometimes also it can cause a little bit of kind of chaos and a distraction as well. But I do have to say that my one of my superpowers is that I genuinely am curious about lots of things. For sure, where did the curiosity come from? Is well, first of all, I did struggle from hyperventilation, panic attacks, mental health, well-being quite significantly. I have to say from 2023 to 2024. I think it was more of a build-up, and my curiosity of how can we support people better actually came from because of the complex medical condition that I had. So I couldn't take any medications, or there wasn't much of a solution that I was able to access. So my curiosity of the people who are going through the same challenges I am, how can we support them? So what happens if you can't take the medication? What happens if you don't have enough time to go through the therapies? Or what happens if people have an acute situation like panic attack, like you are commuting and then suddenly you get a panic attack? What can we do? And usually what I do is when I get curious about something, I start kind of reading about it. I have to dig into what's going on. Is it just me, or is it other people who are experiencing this as well? So I started looking into lots of literatures. I guess that's one of the things I really enjoy. What kind of research has been already done? And I started looking into the physiological anxiety and stress quite a lot of why is panic attack happening, or why is this hyperventilation happening. And I got really interested into when am I having it as well. And it wasn't just myself, it was our team. We got all curious about, okay, certain situation, I suddenly get this hyperventilation. In our view, it was out of nowhere, but it wasn't out of nowhere, especially for myself. We realized that there's a sudden trigger. So, for example, if there's a sudden movement that I didn't expect, or if there was a sudden noise that was particularly loud and sharp, I got triggered. And we kind of started kind of doing a bit of a Sherlock Holmes kind of like, what is it? Why is it? And we realized that lots of sounds that are quite like a hospital sound that it was triggering me to get into the hyperventilation. Which then we realized that around the time that I developed the hyperventilation and panic attack was very much related with my hospital time. So I had to go through a brain surgery when I was about 24, which was more than a decade before that. At that time, I was fine. It was more of the later on follow-up, and one of the follow-ups actually resulted in lots of kind of scaling, like like all over the body, including lumbar puncture, which didn't go well. And then I ended up having to go through a blood patch procedures, and it was very difficult procedures. And I was obviously kind of suddenly in the hospital days and days, and there's a lot of pain. And my hyperventilation and panic attack seems to started around that time. So I struggled to have that hyperventilation and panic attack day to day for a while, without knowing where it kind of happened. And then when we started realizing that it's these external factors that seem to trigger it, we just avoided it because I was very busy, like focusing on work. There were lots to do. For a long period of time, we just tried to avoid it. So I wouldn't expose myself to loud noises or sudden movement, and that kept me going for a while. End of 2024 is when I got to start really looking into it. So what can we do? I avoided it, but I couldn't just avoid sound. I wanted to do something about it, and our team was also dedicated. So what can we actually do? Because it wasn't just myself. Like lots of people do get triggered by certain and then it will go to curiosity, as you mentioned. Um, and one day, I have to say, I was kind of sitting down thinking about when do I feel most kind of safe. Uh, and I was looking to my two little children, and they love hugging each other. And I was like, okay, why are they hugging each other? And I'm sure, we all know hug is really it's useful, right? Like we always give each other hugs to people who are going through challenge, and it instantly makes you feel better. But I think my curiosity of like why? How is there more to a hug of that kind of comfort? Is there more things? So then we started looking into science of hugging, and we started learning about co-regulation and the physiological synchrony that can happen between central nervous system from myself giving you a hug that can couple our cardiac rhythms. I thought that was such a beautiful science. And that's when we started looking into this. Okay, can we actually make people feel cared for and sense of care when can we synchronize individual central nervous system even when they're not getting hugged, even when they can't access it? Because when we're commuting, when we're giving presentation, when we're about to go into interview, unfortunately we can't have the access to hug all the time. So that's where we kind of started, and then we started building things, and then when we tested things, they seemed to be showing quite of a great output, and then we learned more. I have to say there's still a lot more that we want to study because go back to curiosity, one question after one other. Um, so that's kind of where we're at. We don't have answers for everything, but it's kind of constant learning, being curious and trying to find out more and more. So it's a journey. Sorry, that was a very long
No, I
answer.
loved I loved it. What I found was really interesting was the thing, when you started doing like kind of the test to figure out what triggers your anxiety. And it kind of resonated quite deeply because my dad used to suffer from really bad panic attacks, particularly with ambulance sounds, because my mom passed away when I was like 13 and he had to go to the ambulance with her. So it really triggered him in those moments anytime he heard those loud sounds. But he never admitted it to himself that he had anxiety because there was a lot of stigma. And I know that you grew up in Korea, which can have a lot of stigma towards anxiety. So do you think that contributed to maybe some resistance in the experience when you were trying to figure out what was going on? Like, how did your upbringing challenge the way you interacted with your own anxiety?
I think you really kind of is addressing something that I'm passionate about. I think I am very lucky that you're absolutely right. We as a society that they would try to hide stress and anxiety, panic attack, panic disorders. There is a stigma around it for sure, and people try to hide it. And I think that actually is one of the biggest problems that we want to address. I myself is quite open about it. I think it's why I do not know, and maybe I have to learn about myself a bit more. But I do have to say that I was very lucky to have kind of a family who doesn't make me feel like it's associated with weakness. If anything, the most passionate people and people who get nervous and anxious, and often if you actually talk to them, it's because they want to do better. They really care about what they do. They are focused. So I think there is a lot of understanding of if people are anxious or stressed and they can't better feel themselves, it's associated with weakness. But I really don't think, I think that's a huge kind of misunderstanding. Now, going back to what you mentioned about ambulance and triggers. What we are learning at the moment, although we have to learn a lot more, is that there's a physiological reaction to the stressor. It's not necessarily you start thinking, you know, when we are exposed to a hot stove and we touch it, we don't necessarily think, okay, we're going to have to bear this heat,
Yeah.
right? We react to it and we avoid it. That's kind of what our brain is doing. There's amygdala, and then there is the frontal cortex where um, uh, we sense the danger and our body will react to it. And if our brain associates certain sensory, whether it's an ambulance sound or street sound or like a sudden shock sound, our body reacting to it is not something that you should just bear with. You would never tell someone saying like, why are you avoiding a hot stove? Like you should be, like strong enough to go through it. So I think that's why the passion for us is that absolutely mental health is a combination of psychological and physiological anxiety and stress. And we can't just put it into the individuals and say that you're going to have to push it through and be strong about it. You need to deal with it yourself as well. I think that there is a huge thing of actually the brain wiring, like a neural wiring ourselves into recording that the starting experience or sensory is recorded as a danger that needs to be rewired. So I think there's a huge part of the homework that we need to do of awareness of mental health does not mean like you've got a weakness. It's just your trouble that you have to go through. We need to actually support. People have a broken bone. You won't say that, no, you have to just push it through. We need to actually look into it. So I think brain health care needs to, I mean, we all know that neuroscience and your brain health is something that we can learn so much better. And I'm excited. It is very, very complicated. We sit down and we try to learn all the time. But it's also exciting because of that, because there is a lot of things that we can do to support our brain health.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, I think, especially on the pathway of if we remove this stigma that's attached to how we approach mental health problems, then I think a lot of people will take better steps. And there would be a lot of innovation, kind of like LYEONS Neurotech, happening to help support these people as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do not see this as like a 1 year or 2 year or one study, another study, and then we're done. I really think there's a lot of studies that we can do in terms of mental health in general, especially given the society changed so much. Like there's a lot of challenges that we're facing as a modern society. Whether are we spending enough time connecting with people? Well, we have a lot of connection now. We can talk to each other all the time, but are we spending quality time, being present, being grounded, and having a quality time together? I think there's a lot of things to address, and that's what we want to do. And you would love for more innovators to come, and you feel like this is the beginning of the journey.
It's amazing. And another thing through my time with working with you is that because you're so excited about learning new things and so many things drive you, I'm really curious about how you decide where to place your energy and dedicate your time. Like, is that something you struggle to handle? Like, how do you, I feel like a lot of young people are always, there's so many things, or I can only speak for myself, but there's so many things I find really cool and I struggle to find or figure out where to place my energy. So is that something you struggled with?
I definitely did struggle with it. And so I did definitely struggle with the constant curiosity that I have. But then I also struggled with, I always felt like I didn't learn enough. If I look into something and I want to learn about it, it just felt like it's never enough. I need to learn more. I need to learn more. Which also meant that the project finishing, when to learn how to say, okay, now there's something, let's go and validate it. That kind of always was a bit of a challenge. I do have to say, one of the discipline that I learned was actually through a course that I did at Imperial and Royal College of Art of Innovation Design Engineering course. And the part that I really love about this course is that we had a very strict deadline. So they actually taught us how to project manage and stay focused. And I have to say it was painful because I had so many curiosities. There were so many projects that I wanted to work in, but because they taught us how to be disciplined into, okay, there is a time that you do a research and you have to make a redirection, and then now you pick one and then you focus on it. You may pivot, but you have to be decisive so you can take the next step to carry on. So um, I found that really, really helpful, and I would really encourage yourself to try it out to stay disciplined in the way. And one of the tricks that I use is that I actually use my calendar to put, okay, this time I'm going to work on this time I'm going to work on this. So it's full of the things. I do try to have life milestones and life Gantt chart, but it's very flexible. It's not like I'm going to work in this time. It's more about thinking about in my lifetime, what kind of things do I want to do, and where do I want to be available? So, for example, when my parents are like above 80, I want to make sure that I'm there for them in case they need me. When my children are young, I want to be present for them. So I came up with this like what is important for me in my life, and I just put that in time. And as far as I'm doing that, in terms of work, I also stay disciplined, saying, okay, this time I'm going to focus on neurotechnology. At this time, I want to focus on teaching because I love teaching as well. So it's a very, very rough, grand kind of like plan that I have that can be very flexible in between. That really helped me to explore in between that kind of timeline. So, long story short, it is challenging. I think it's. I really hope everyone understands that it's not like I figured everything out at all. I do try really hard to stay disciplined. I do make mistakes all the time, but one of the things that really helped me is be okay with it. It's very natural, and once you go through that journey, you find how to stay um, um, widely like focused, if that makes sense. You don't have to pick everything what you want to do and forget about everything. You will find kind of a balance, and it does take time to explore, so it's absolutely fine. Do you talk with lots of people who um, kind of just came about that time? So I did have a lot of life advisors where they just went through their journey and they'll share It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to be curious about lots of things. You are trying to find what you're really interested in. So that's kind of how I'm still learning myself, you know?
No, thank you so much. I'm actually really curious about your upbringing a little bit. So I know you went to university and you studied, it was like design engineering almost. So you have a very, very unique background. What were you like as a student? Were you very studious? Were you very dedicated?
Oh, I was so like I was a curious child from when I was since I was very, very small, which doesn't correlate with being a good student. I don't think I was a good student, I have to be honest. There were lectures that I was just sneaking because I found that it's quite interesting. I'm gonna have to go talk with this professor. It had nothing to do with my course. I have to say, and it's something that I took to students all the time, is why are you taking this course? Are you trying to get a good grade? And why are you trying to get a good grade? Is it to get a good job? Then what kind of job? Why do you want to get a good job? And I think that once again, it's going back to that curiosity, right? So for me, since I was very little, I was always curious about lots of things, including what do I want to do in my life? Where do I want to spend my time? And I tried out lots of things. I also made a lot of mistakes in a way where I thought, well, like assumptions. So I thought I wanted to become a full-time artist at one point. I love art, but then I realized I love it as a hobby, but I'm not kind of quiet enough to stay in a gallery all the time, is what I realized. And then I started, like, I thought I was really interested in marketing and communication. So I kind of looked into doing an internship there. And then when I was doing internship, I really enjoyed it, but I didn't necessarily think like, okay, that kind of fulfillment that I will have. And then I did internship in a medical device design consultancy. And then is when I realized, oh my God, this is it. Like really love how we can use technology to support people who are going through a long-term condition. I love science behind it. I love how you have to make sure the efficacy is there. You have to think about usability to make sure that it's designed and developed in a way that it can make a real life impact. So I think I was constantly confused in terms of what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? Trying it and realizing, oh, do I like it? Do I not like it? I think that reflection was really important. Day to day, in and out of work or studies, I will be constantly thinking about um, am I really, really passionate about? I always kind of, if I did an internship, I would dedicate myself. It's one thing that I have as a principle is that if I promise something, I will do my best. But I think it's different to do I want to do this whole life or do I have like full passion towards this topic? What's a bit different. So um, I think that was the focus. It wasn't about showing people that I can do it. It was all about what makes me feel like I'm contributing to society. It really mattered a lot for me in terms of supporting other people, supporting further learnings about brain health. It really kind of motivates me. And it was journey, as I said, I did so many random internships. I did a lot of different volunteering things, and I realized that those volunteering moments really made me genuinely happy. It was a very small time, but it made it really meaningful for me. So I just constantly followed how I felt about what I do. If it makes me happy, or do I feel like, why am I doing this? And followed my instinct in a way.
That's so interesting. Was there anything that you seriously believed about yourself when you were younger or about the world that you had to unlearn to get to where you are today? Or anything that you had a misconception of that you realize, oh, this is true or this is not true?
Hmm. So I think that that's a really interesting question. So if I think about it, my parents were in business, and I always learned that business needs to deliver value for people. And one of the key things that my father taught me is that unless the company can deliver a value, for him it was very important that people have a good experience. We are delivering something that is exciting for them. It is helping people. It is helping in whatever way. So he always taught me that you have to focus on the value, and it's not about focusing on just money at all. But along the journey, and I have actually no idea why I developed this sense of, oh, business is all about money. That wasn't really the teaching that I had early in my life. But in between, probably when I was like a late teenage and like early 20s, I started thinking, oh, if you want to do business, you need to be very like kind of driven by making lots of money. But I was actually proven wrong. And I think initially I never thought that I'll become a CEO because I just never thought about it. But what it taught me, the journey of running a company, I met with such incredible people. Of course, there were people who made me feel like, okay, do they really care about people or do they just think about money? Of course, there were people like that, but I do have to say that it was much like small proportion of people than people who genuinely want to support the greater good of the company, the value that the company can deliver. So maybe I was extremely lucky, maybe, but I truly believe now that it's all about value delivering. It is about good. People do want to find a win-win situation. People do want to build a community. Alongside, we get confused, but at the end of the day, what's the purpose of life? I would like to maybe believe and also make it in such a way that everyone wants to be good for the world. Maybe at this new side of my life, but I think it was more like I believed in the people at the time. Maybe I thought no, maybe not, but then now I strongly believe that there are more people who want to support each other.
That's amazing. I think when I think about like leadership journeys and when you did Charco, was that your first time leading a team? Was there anything intimidating about it? Or did you learn a lot about, I'm sure you probably learned lots about yourself during that experience, but really stepping into that leadership and being the person with the vision in Charco, was there anything intimidating about it? And how did you overcome that sense of intimidation?
So I think the leadership is something I always wonder where does it come from. Is it my first time? So I was a student representative. Like my professor actually asked me to be when I was undergrad, and I was actually wondering why am I suitable? But somehow, like we managed to have a great year, and I think maybe one of the reasons why they asked me to do it is that I did listen to students and I did deliver their messages and I was strong about it. So maybe it's that part of myself trying to listen to people, try to understand and create the environment that people all collectively want. Was it intimidating for Charcoal, Lions and so on? I have to say I when the way that I learned leadership is not person who sits at the top. The leadership that I learned from my parents is that you are actually the foundation, and so you actually have to be the most bottom, understanding people and creating an environment that is the best place for them to become the best of themselves. So as you probably may be aware, I was not by far the oldest person in the team, which meant that I was a leader of actually lots of people who had more experiences. They had led much bigger company and the team. I loved one of the things that one of our senior team member who had 20, 30 years of experience, he was always so respectful of me. And one day he mentioned, because we were making a very difficult decision, and that we evaluated different directions, but I made a decision, okay, we're gonna go for A. And he said, if that's the direction that you go for, I'm gonna trust you and we're gonna run with that, even though it's gonna be difficult. And I asked him, you have far more experience, but why do you trust in my decision? And he said, because the way that he sees me is that vision and the principle that I have in life, and that is what he trusts in. It's not about the skills or experience I have more for them. It's more about what I believe in and the principles that he really believes that I'll do what's the right thing for the people in the long term. I really did appreciate that. And I think that kind of leadership is that I don't have to be the right person. It's more about listening to people and trying to do my best. I think that's the thing, is that I don't, I, I am not the person who wants to be the person who wants to know the best in the room, or the, like uh, the most active one. It's more about trying to understand what's the challenge, try to listen to people, trying my best to provide the environment that people can become better persons. So I love working with people who are passionate. I love working with people who actually know much better than I do, people who can provoke my thoughts, ask about why are we making this. I love those kind of environments. So because I don't see leadership as the someone who sits on the top, who knows the best. I'm more of a leader who kind of works together with people. I didn't really find it intimidating, and I do have to say that was thanks to my business advisors and chairman who taught me what the actual leadership means. So yeah.
That's so amazing. And again, having been working with you, I can see, I feel like you create an environment where people really leave their egos at the door and people can really just focus on what they want to create. And since you mentioned, how your parents and your business advisors have contributed to your development as a leader and working with the different businesses, how important do you think mentorship has been in your development? And what advice would you give young people who are seeking out mentorship or seeking out advice in a certain way? Like, how do you discern what mentorship is great, what mentorship isn't for you, and so on and so forth?
I think it's so important. I think when we say mentorship and advisor, it ought to feel very professional and very kind of a little bit distant. I think it's better to see it as a like kind of life, like someone who lived a bit longer than me, or someone who have more experience of me. It doesn't have to be that you lived longer or you did it longer, but we all have different experience in different scenarios, and we are exposed to different things. And people who walk that path can actually teach a lot. I learned so much from my 7 and 9-year-old. They ask such a fundamental question of, "Mommy, but why are we doing it this way?" So it doesn't have to be someone who lived longer than you or who have a more experience than you in terms of the time. It's genuinely you can learn from anyone. I think it's so important. It really helped me guide my life. Uh, and I think one of the best mentors and advisors and friends and family that I had is people who support you navigate. And I'll just actually quote my dad. My father never tells me what to do. And it might be surprising given that he's coming from business background. He only supports me to think about things. Have you thought about this way? What about this? And I asked him one day, "Oh, why are you not telling me what to do?" And he said, "If I tell you what to do, the best you can become is, to my degree, I think you can do far more. So why would I try to tell you what to do? You should try more things based on his learning and explore your own world, and then you can become a greater person than he is." I thought that was incredibly inspiring. And I think that's the relationship that you can have with people like mentors and advisors, is not to tell you what to do, but to push you to explore your own way of doing things and what's important to you, not to me. And I think that's why they can support you to, find your own path.
That's so amazing. I think I agree. I think I learned lots from, like, I have little cousins, so maybe it's not the same as having kids, but I think through trying to give them advice or hearing about their situations, I learn. I'm like, oh, wait, I've never been through that or fought through that in
Exactly.
that circumstance. And you think, oh, usually you dismiss people because they're younger than you, but then you start speaking to them, and you're like, wait a minute, there's wisdom in like this innocence of seeing the
Absolutely.
world.
Absolutely. And I think that innocence is beautiful. Like any of my business advisors who were like C-level of a big corporation, they were incredibly receptive of what I was thinking, and they would ask me questions like, um, "What do you think is the right thing to do?" And I think because I didn't necessarily study business, I actually came from very innocent mind of no, we need to do the right thing for people. I was very strong with that. And it was also the way that my father kind of told me that you need to do the right thing, even though it's more difficult. And he said, often the right thing to do will be more difficult than taking a shortcut. And that's the resilience part and the responsibility that you should have as a leader. So yeah, often I chose a very, very difficult way, the easy way that I could have taken. Um, but yeah, I think but the key thing is that if you do the right thing, even though it's difficult, you won't regret it. Later on, you can go to bed thinking that you tried, you did the best thing that you could have done. It is difficult and it might not work out, but you tried again. You'll continue trying.
Interesting. Do you see when you're looking or considering what success is for you, do you tie it to is success for you like an outcome and is that tied to your identity, or is it the idea of trying that you tie to your identity rather than the outcome?
I for me, as of now, today is trying, and I'll just use this example. One of the person, like one of the founder, who was just starting, asked us, "What do you consider as a failure? When do you know that you've done enough and that's it? I'm not going to continue." Um, I actually thought that was the answer. Like when the failure only comes if you say, okay, I'm gonna stop trying. Uh, Trying can come from like a different form of whether you work in a technology or sparing 1 hour of your time volunteering somewhere. I think as far as you are continuously trying to do your best, I think that is a success. I don't think, for me, I don't think I have this kind of milestone of I want to become CEO a global multi-billion dollar company. It's more about keeping that principle of that we want to do the best for people and that is sustainable business that can grow and provide more impact across the world and continue to try that is kind of my way of how I see a success.
Amazing. This is our last question, unfortunately. But I feel like I can speak to you for hours. I always feel like time runs away. But for anybody who's listening and they want to start something, whether it's a business, a venture, whether it's writing a book, designing a water bottle, I don't know. What do you think is the best way to approach to start off something new, like the thought or vision of an idea?
I read a book called, it was from Richard Branson, and it was a book around just do it. And I really found that book inspiring because you can never be perfect when you start something. It's actually better to start it, try it, because the fear that you mentioned, yes, of course, sometimes, well, like lots of times I'm scared, like, am I doing the right thing? Do I know enough? Have I done enough research? You never feel like you've done enough, is how I feel, at least for myself. Just trying it and trying to build on top of it always um, was the best way for me to learn and actually make a progress and make a step forward. You might take a step forward and then it might have been wrong. Then you can actually go back and then make another step forward. Another lesson, once again, that I learned from my father is that the worst decision is a decision that has not been made. If you made a decision and it was a wrong decision, you revert back and then try it again. If you made a decision and it was great, then it's great. But if you don't make a decision and you don't make a step forward, you're going nowhere. So I really found that a valuable lesson for me to keep whilst I'm doing things. So whoever is thinking about should I try it? Is this my thing? I would say just try it, Unless you try it, you will never know. So just go for it.
I think that is so true, especially on the theme of perfectionism. I think it's so easy and it's so visible when somebody is really good at something, and everybody only shows what they've done, like absolutely 100% well. And so it can be quite intimidating because you're comparing to yourself to a crazy standard that you created in your head. But I don't know, your favorite song, your favorite movie, your phone that you use all the time, it probably started from a place of very high imperfection.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think it's so important. And I think if you look into the social media, actually on the LinkedIn post, I was thinking that often we will celebrate the best moments, but behind the everything that's happening, I really hope everyone knows the struggles and challenges and mistakes that we make. It is the thing. We are all people, so don't feel like the post that you see is, oh, why are they doing so well? And I do not know. Like, we all struggle, we make mistakes, we all kind of go through it just like everyone else. So I would really encourage them that we also make mistakes all the time. I always make mistakes. I always learn all the time, and that's just a part of the journey. But we have to take the journey, you know. We have to start somewhere.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Oh, thank you.